Everything that you think, everything that you feel is not part of this world. It's only a part of you. It only relies inside you yourself. You are the wall that defines how the world recognizes you when you put that out into the world, right? Every time you say something, you move your hands, you make a gesture, that's what you're going to be defined as in this world. So make sure that you understand nobody else in existence controls how you are defined besides you. You are the one that are going to take the emotions and the thought process and define what that really looks like as a representation of yourself. So, as you were saying, like that left and right brain ideology and the structure of how to see things, it is completely controlled by you. It is the hardest thing in the world to do, to find out how to control yourself and your own emotions past what you naturally feel.
Hi everyone, this is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Gerashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success, and in Season 4 understand how we can provide referrals to our guests and how they can help other agencies. Today I have Kyle Barry, the CEO of Kaizen Marketing Agency, a customer acquisition expert that uses psychology and an omni-channel approach to consistently grow businesses. Welcome, Kyle.
Thanks, guys. Alex, Josh, pleasure to be here. Super excited.
I'm a big plant guy too, so 2 thumbs up for the background with the plants and everything. You look like you're kind of on like the 7th, 8th floor. What floor are you on?
Oh, I'm definitely on the ground floor. Nothing too fancy here, but it is Florida. You gotta have indoor plants because you cannot walk outside right now. It's about 105 degrees with 200% humidity.
I did Orlando for 5 years, and that place is like the most muggy, disgusting weather place ever. So
the worst airport to walk into ever. It's like you walk straight into water.
I hear you on that one. I moved to Denver where it's like 15% humidity every day. It's amazing. But well, I want to start a lot of this off chronologically because you learned a lot growing up in your family business, which we'll get to, both good and bad. So can you tell us a little bit more about your family's restaurant, the difficulties you faced, and any lessons you learned? I'll remind you of those 3 things. So we can start off with just kind of telling us a little bit more about the family business.
Yeah. So, luckily enough, my father was an entrepreneur. I think he was an entrepreneur because he just didn't want to work for anybody. So he started off a business. And when I was young, I got raised in the company. So from as long as I can remember, I was working in a store. And then he started me off 40 hours a week by about 12 years old. I was a money hungry kid. I wanted to be able to travel and make my own money and do my own thing. So that was a restaurant that my father was an incredible chef, but not the best business owner. So I learned through that time there of sweat equity, work ethic, a good structure of execution, a good ideology of getting stuff done and not letting anything hold you back. He used to have a saying of, you're either going to help me get it done or I'm going to step on the back of your head to do it myself. So I made sure I moved pretty quickly and worked through a kitchen. And luckily enough, my wife loves me for it now. I can cook pretty well working through there. But at the end of that, right after the '08 crash, everybody was going through hardship. My father, at that point, had a small liquor store next to a 2,500 square foot grocery, deli market, and hot food section, and that's where I worked, was the deli and market. He decided to close the deli and market and make a large warehouse liquor store. And I was left sitting there with no job, no way of making income, being about 18 years old and realizing that I've put everything into that business. So my father let me rent the restaurant portion out from him. And that's where a lot of the entrepreneurial learning lessons and the structure of how to develop a business and how to find answers, right? As entrepreneurs, we don't have any answers, right? It's just like, hey, we want to make money. There's something that we want to do, but it's like, how do I make not the best plate of food because I knew how to cook, but how did I make a plate of food that was consistent? It was profitable. It got out at a certain time. It was structured into a business entity where I knew the numbers enough to actually grow. I didn't learn any of that with my dad, right? With my dad, it was just how to make a good plate of food and how to find the sales yourself. The greatest lesson was definitely getting suspended from high school because I printed, I think it was like 6,000 menus out of the printer in high school. And I was like getting yelled at the end of it, like, you can't do that. And I was like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And my persistency there got me a suspension in school. But enough flyers to be able to go around my whole little town and put the flyers into people's cars and to their mailboxes, which is totally illegal. Didn't know that at the time. Into their mailboxes and everywhere else to start driving my own customers into the business that my father didn't have previously. So that was the best learning lesson I had from outside of learning how to cook. It's a valuable lesson that I'll always have. But the marketing aspect of it is what I fell in love with it. And yeah, that was really my father's business overall. That's what it taught me was the work ethic, the structure. But unfortunately, 2013-ish, that all came to a halt. The restaurant ended up just not being able to sustain after the '08 crash. And my dad built my house on top of the restaurant. So in one fell swoop, we lose the restaurant, we lost our house, and it was a complete reset.
Well, one, I first want to say I appreciate you, opening up and telling that story. I think it's honestly one of the most unique and incredible. I'm struggling to find the right word there. Stories that we've heard of. So, and I was going to say with the printing the menus thing, I was about to be like, oh, it's one of those like ask for forgiveness type things after. No, you got suspended. So like,
Yeah.
shit. No, like that was not that wasn't the right move, but it wasn't it wasn't a ask for forgiveness type thing. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
got screwed
Well,
there.
it was the persistence, right? Because yeah,
Yeah,
instead of like, oh, sorry, I'll stop. You're like, no, it's cool, it's cool.
yeah, no. So like, because they try to get me out of like 1,000 menus, it's like I don't have enough. So like, as I'm like yelling at the teachers and everything like that, like trying to just like pull them to the side and communicate with them, I'm just watching the two. I think I had 2 or 3 printers going at the same time, just printing out all the menus. Yeah. So I mean, the persistency, it was definitely a lesson that any business owner, you've done this for longer than a year, you'll realize if you don't have persistency, you'll go back to a 9 to 5 really quick.
And I'm glad you brought that up because the next batch of questions after these are going to be about some of those like traits and stuff. So I want to get back to that in a second. First, I want to know a few quick questions. What's the best dish you can make?
It's either I had my own pizza recipe where we made our own dough, our own sauce, we grated our own cheese. So I was pretty fond of just different styles of pizzas. But chicken cordon bleu was something that we did a little bit different that I thought was really good. But I can make a chicken Alfredo that would, by the third meal would probably give you diabetes, but it's absolutely delicious. But
That's perfect. I'm a relatively picky eater. I'll eat all of those that you just said. The other kind of silly question that I had based on a lot of things that you just said is what was the first thing that you bought with your money? Working like, yeah, I'm sure it was minimum wage or something, but like you still work enough hours, you're going to accumulate some money. Did you like save it all or it's like, what was the first thing that you bought?
spent every dollar as I made it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So and during the time, the reason that I was motivated, and it kind of goes hand in hand, the reason I was motivated to work so hard, especially at like 14, 15 before I owned the business, and you're going to school, but I was working 40 hours a week. I found paintball. I found competitive paintball.
Right.
And it cost me roughly, $50 to $100 a weekend to compete and practice. And that's where all my money went. It just constantly, by 13, 14 years old, I was traveling to California. I was traveling to Phoenix to compete in these tournaments. And that's where every dollar went. And honestly, looking back, I probably just spent, $100,000, $150,000 by the time I was 18 years old. And I would do it all over again. There's no, yeah. I would definitely have a nice car and like a much easier life right now if I didn't. But the memories of what I spent my time on during those young ages paved the way for the person I am today. So I don't think I would ever take it back.
So I'm glad you brought up the paintball. Now I want to kind of combine the restaurant and the paintball. And I guess what did you learn either or both at the restaurant and paintball that now you bring to your agency?
Yeah, so like today, I'm a professional paintball player. I play with a team called Miami Kings. We're out of the state of Florida. I just got back from England last week, competing in a tournament out there. It's a lot of the traits, a lot of the personal traits that translate over. The persistency, right? It's a sport where I have to go out on the weekend and dive into mud and get shot with a paintball, and I'm bloody and I'm hurting, and I have to go back out, right? The persistency there. If you didn't have persistency, you wouldn't continue to play that game. So that was a huge factor. The commitment of time, right? The understand to dedicate time, and that, you can only get, the reason my agency is called Kaizen today is because I believe in that ideology of being 1% better every single day. So, to get to a professional level in paintball, it took so much time that the 100,000 hours to find perfection is the 100,000 hours to start your practice of perfection in my eyes, right? So, it was a time commitment. It was persistency behind the dedication of what you're doing. It's the discipline, right? Like there was a lot of same thing as as a business owner. It's very hard for you to wake up every single day and be very consistent and on top of the ball if you're spending your nights drinking and smoking, if you're going out and you're hanging out with people and partying too hard and you're not putting the time towards your business. When you wake up, if you partied hard on a Wednesday night, when you wake up Thursday morning for your 9 a.m. meeting, you're not the same human being as if you were sharp. And we had practice and tournaments every Saturday and Sunday morning. So, I was the young kid that if I did go to a party on a Friday night, I was leaving at 12 o'clock. And I was dedicated to the craft of being successful. So, the persistency, dedication, and the understanding that you need to put time into something to really get the fruit of your labor was the three main things that helped me out today. Even today is trying to scale my agency and move from a professional player to a top 3 professional player in the world. I understand it takes time. I understand I need to be dedicated to my craft and I need to be persistent in the eyes of defeat, and it's definitely helped me across the board and everything, but in marketing, in my business, plus paintball, those are the 2 things that I find a lot of similarities.
I would destroy you in paintball. I'm just
let's go whenever you want, dude. Whenever you want. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I do love paintballing. I never did it professionally or with the league or anything, but put a gun in my hand and I'll shoot someone. The other thing I just wanted to add to that also, there's got to be a lot of context. I need paintball. Put paintball somewhere in that last sentence that I just said. Yeah. I saw Alex's face on that. The other thing I would add to that on the not partying or not as much partying is also just sleep. And I think you were kind of saying that as well, is just making sure you get enough sleep, because I know at least when I don't get enough sleep, like that next day I basically feel hungover, and I will cancel these calls and everything like that. So, again, we were going to get into the persistency and things like that, and maybe you just answered a lot of this question in what you just responded to. But what do you think is the difference between someone who was maybe in a similar situation, where whether it was seeing success and then quickly failure, with the family or whatever it is, someone who was in a similar situation and didn't make it? What do you think is the difference between you and someone that didn't make it?
The understanding of prudence, right? The understanding that you can make an infinite amount of decisions, but there's only a few that are actually correct. So the understanding that there's an amazing interview with Tai Lopez, which I'm not the biggest fan of Tai, but he's got a really good low If you look up Tai Lopez best interview on YouTube, it's the first one's going to pop up. And he says that the one true identifying factor of successful business owners is conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is broken down into 4 subfacets. It's diligence, hard work, right? Everyone that owns a business or tried to own a business knows they need to work hard. It's organization, right? Which us as the 3 men here might not be the best at. Some men are really, really good at it. Most men are not, but organization is a needed factor to be successful. If you can't organize your life and your time, you can't find success. Perfectionist, right? Which is, this is a term that's really had a bad, tainted ideology to it recently. But your definition of perfection, right? Everyone has their own definition of perfection. It could change every second. It could change every day. But if you don't strive to that level of perfection, if you don't check your own work and double check to make sure that you're doing it the best of your ability, you're always going to fail, right? This is why most businesses need checks and balances in place, SOP documentation, the clear understanding of what success or perfection really looks. And then the 4th one is prudence. Prudence is the ability to make the right decision, right? So you can work hard, be organized, double check your work, but if you didn't have the right guidance, right? It's a perfect example of working out a gym, right? If you're working out and say you have bad form, right? You can work out every single day. You can organize what you're going to do and have your workouts, and you could enact the form that you were initially taught to a level of perfection. But if it's the wrong form, your prudence is wrong. That where you got your decision making and your opinions of what is right is wrong is incorrect, and it will cause all of it to be a failure. So the biggest difference, I think, what I did was I choked up a little bit. I became a lot more humble, I should say. I'm a 19-year-old kid, really out there trying to get it, own my dad's business, and was very ambitious. I had to choke up and humble myself, and look for people that I would normally not be very comfortable even communicating with, and go to them and look for advice and ask for help and find out where success really is and what success that I wanted looked like, and then the people that are already doing those things, right? Everyone has their own journey in life, but let's be honest, we have, 2000 plus years of documented history. There's somebody that lived your life so far, right? It's doing the stuff that you want to do, right? So if you go through, and this is usually found in books, it's found in a lot of good YouTube pages, but it's found in mentors, right? Which is an underlying, I think, a factor that not many people dive into because they have books and they have YouTube and they have these platforms now. But a true mentor, like my first true mentor was a man named Chris McFarland, who's a financial advisor who brought the level of professionalism, organization, and accounting that I was never shown as a child. And it restructured the way my mind had to look at a lot of numbers and structure of business. So yeah, I think the one defining factor, if I could say, for most people, most business owners that were successful to unsuccessful, is that finding that true north. What does success really look like, and how do I get there? And then, leaning into people that can help you get there.
That might have been one of my favorite answers of any question that we've asked on this podcast.
Yeah, I wrote it down for our team to take that out as a short.
I was going to even say out loud, hey, can we turn that into a short? That was perfect.
Yep.
Awesome.
And the last, I guess maybe the last question that I kind of want to ask on this topic before getting into the business is, first of all, first you mentioned organization. I think Alex is very good at organization and I'm not, which the thing that I actually wanted to say to that is it's so important to know your weaknesses and build a team around you that kind of covers a lot of your weaknesses. Whatever Alex is, I don't know if Alex has any weaknesses, but if he does, I think I kind of cover those fairly well and vice versa.
I think you and I work well together.
I think so.
Covering each other's gaps.
And, you mentioned discipline a few times. And the reason I'm staying on this topic is because it is one of my favorite topics. Anyone that's listened to the show knows anytime you mention the word motivation, discipline, any of those kind of resilience, that's usually where I'll dive in. And, again, you mentioned discipline, but I really just want to get your thoughts on motivation because I from the short time that I've known you, you seem to be a very motivated person. You didn't just start a business. You didn't just go, I think you mentioned twice on our last call, going from, rich to poor. But you were also like a bigger kid when you were a kid. And I think it takes a lot of motivation that turns into discipline and blah, 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 to go from someone who was like that to, you look pretty fit right now. So can you just kind of spend a second talking about what motivation means to you and how that helped you not only accomplish goals on the business side, but maybe personal as well?
100%. I'm going to go off track for 1 second just so that you kind of understand the way my mind structure works around it. Because I believe that motivation is emotional and dedication is a mindset, right? So motivation, to be motivated, is an emotional feeling, right? My father's a child psychiatrist, right? And he's one of the best here in the state of Florida. And one of the few things that he taught me in the very beginning that have stuck with me throughout all his learnings is the understanding that our chemical reactions in our brain happen like 127,000 times faster than our thought process. So every decision we ever make in our life is influenced by emotion. Sometimes we feel it because the emotion's super strong. Sometimes we don't feel it at all, but it's still influenced by an emotion. The second one that he taught me that has changed the way that I can do these podcasts, that I can talk on stage, is that mentally in your brain, physically, the chemical reaction of excitement and anxiety are the same exact neurological impulse in your brain. There is zero difference in your brain. The only difference is that in your frontal lobe, if you have a level of dopamine and you're happy, you become excited. If you have a high level of serotonin and you're not happy or you're depressed, you become anxiety. You get anxiety from it. So to understand that it's the same exact thing, but you decide how you actually take that feeling and push it out to the world, changed the way I thought a lot about emotions, right? Because if I'm sitting here feeling anxiety and I'm scared and I'm start sweating and I have anxiety, if I can convince myself, no, it's not anxiety, that's excitement. I'm pumped up so much that I'm nervous about it. Use the excitement. Hone that excitement in. I used to not be able to talk on stage. I used to shake when I was getting sales calls. That all of that has changed, right? Because I was able to switch that over. So to go into your original question about motivation and dedication, I believe that motivation is a feeling that you find through things that you want to do, but it is fleeting. It comes and goes. It does not stay consistently. Dedication is, how do I take the moments that I'm motivated, the success that I'm having from that motivation, and I make it a repeatable process by documenting and executing it and staying dedicated to that when the motivation is there or not there, right? So in my mind, it's two different things. But I'm a man that I think was initially motivated through distress, right? I was 240 pounds at 14 years old with glasses and frosted tips. I got made fun of a good bit, right? I was told I could never play professional paintball. I was told that, I was only going to be a cook my entire life, or I wasn't really going to make it. These things were verbally said to me, and they became cornerstones to my motivation as I grow up. Now, as I'm older and I'm 30 and I've been successful, that motivation isn't there like it used to be. I don't have a lot of people talking crap like they used to be, unfortunately. I wish there was a little bit more like you saying, like, I'll come shoot you in paintball, let's go, right? Instantly, I'm like, come on, let's compete. Now it's become a process of, let me use my dedication of what I know is correct from the years I've been doing this to reignite that motivation. So I take it to the next level, right? So I'm constantly trying to lean into that 80-20 rule, where 20% of your efforts are going to lead to 80% of the actual results in your given day. I try to lean into that 20% and always don't do it. Don't do it just blatantly. Don't do it without emotion. Do it so I find emotion, so I find success, leaning into affirmations or reviewing the success after things happen, so that I lean into the happiness and I lean into an emotional tie back that gets me motivated for the next time I want to do it, right? There's a lot of times, especially in business, you can go through a sales call and say, sales call as an example, and say it's a failure and you don't get the close, but there was something that happened there that you find out was successful later down the line, right? That person didn't close with you, but he referred you to someone that closed. Well, you did something right there that you need to revisit, that should bring in a level of motivation now to hone in on that aspect, right? It might look like a failure, so you don't feel motivated afterwards. You feel lackluster, but through an understanding of there's only small moments in time that will bring an increase of success as you do this longer and longer and longer, right? I think that's what I try to revigorate my motivation with, is leaning into my dedication, leaning into what I know what works, and then finding those small things that bring back that energy, that emotion to those things that built the dedication in the first place.
I think, hold on a sec, Josh.
Yeah.
First of all, I know you're salivating right now because this
Yeah, I
is
know.
like one of your favorite topics. So I definitely want you to go through and talk about the three topics. But I think that Kyle brought up a really interesting point of taking the discipline and finding a way to tie motivation back into the discipline, which I thought was really interesting. So what do you think about that, Josh?
Well, like Alex said, this is my favorite topic. So I have this theory. I've been trying. I won't badger it too long on this, but I have this theory of like just trying to understand what makes a successful person, and the only definition for success is just like accomplishing goals. Or I don't really care about the definition of success, but what I think I've boiled it down to, and I think I might have to make some edits after this conversation, is it's a combination of like self-awareness, motivation, and discipline, and they all kind of work together. And they're I have like this theory I call like the half-life of motivation, which is almost exactly like what you were saying, which is, they're emotional, but you still have like this half-life. And by that, I mean, there's this like really heavy moment of motivation that if you can take advantage and create a discipline during that first half-life when it doesn't start to weaken, and then actually execute on that discipline, that's how you maximize motivators. Because like you said, every motivator is going to be fleeting. It's going to be gone at some point. Even the ones that last 20 years and ran your entire life, what got me here won't get me there, right? Like it doesn't mean that the next 20 years you're gonna be able to hold on to that same motivator. So a few notes that I wrote while you were saying that. One, I know we talked about this last time, but like fuck you motivation, F you motivation. It sounds like you had a lot of that, but that's the what got me here won't get me there. You don't have as much of that anymore, which is nice. Like let's not lie.
Right?
But what you had to do is then find motivators in other places, and my version of that was actually stress. I did this whole thing that I tried to take stress out of my life, and what I learned is when I did it, that's the number one motivator. Like stress motivates people, and when you take stress out, you need to start to find motivators, and that's why I became obsessed with motivation. And usually you start to move into intrinsic, which I don't even know if it's technically better than extrinsic. Maybe it's a more timely thing than a power thing. So the other thing I wanted to say is, you were talking about excitement and anxiety. Oh, I've never heard someone else talk about this. And like you gave me the most goosebumps I've ever gotten on this. I have the same thing. And you were talking about public speaking. What I realized is a lot of the nerves, you can call that anxiety, that you get for things like, speaking here, speaking on stage, they're actually, you should appreciate those nerves. You're in a position that most people can't get. And I've never heard someone say it like you, but the way that I always thought about it is, wait, these nerves are, I'm in a position that most people can't even get themselves in. Like, shouldn't I like enjoy these nerves? And I call them appreciative nerves, where instead of pushing them away, you sit in them and you're like, thank you for the, and you like thank them. You're like, thank you for these nerves. And it turns it literally, like you said, from a negative emotion to a positive emotion. It's the same exact thing. And what I understood, and slightly related, you mentioned the frontal lobe, and that gave me the opening or the key to bring this part up, which I don't think I brought up before. It was in a Google talk that I listened to, and I wish I knew more of the science behind this. But basically, when something happens to you, usually a bad thing, like maybe you trip outside, like you're about to walk to work or walk to your car for the first day, it's 8 a.m., 7 a.m., you trip, right? And you spill your coffee. There's two ways to handle that. One, and I forget if it's the left or right brain, but eventually it's actually a ratio of neurons that go from your amygdala to your frontal lobe, that if it's more on the left, again, I forget if it's left or right, if it's more on the left, your day's over. You think it's the worst thing that happened. Oh my God, that's awful. And on the other side, it's, oh, how funny was that? Did someone record that? Like, I can't believe I just did that. All right, let me get on with my day. And to me, when I learned that that was actually like not like this just a mental thing, it was like neurons actually moving from one side to the other. I was like, oh, you can actually just train your brain to just flip to the other side. Everything takes time. But I just thought that was such a big deal, because we all know those people that like get stuck in that one little bad thing happens and now their day's ruined. Well, again, it's actually just a ratio in your brain. And if you just know that fun fact of neurons, then you can like start to shift it on the other side. The last thing I'll say to all this is, you were talking about, I think it was something about expectation, and this is a quote I heard recently, and I don't know the exact quote, but I know the idea of it is, when you start to turn expectations into gratitude, you start to become a happier person. Like, at the end of the day, expectations are the root of being upset. Like, it doesn't matter where that expectation is. And of course, there's things that go above the expectation, but like, when you set high expectations, you're really setting yourself up for failure. But when you can turn any expectation into a gratitude, you just appreciate everything. And I think that's a huge thing. So I know we spent a lot of time on that. I want to move over to the business stuff, but do you just have anything else that you want to kind of end with on that side?
Yeah. One last thing. And this comes from my new form of motivation. Yeah, as I gotten older, I found my motivation is supporting and helping people. I train a lot of kids now, right? And I use paintball as an example because it's such an emotionally prone sport, because we go through physical pain. Like football, you get tackled, it hurts a little bit, hurts a bit, you know what I mean, getting tackled, but it's not everyone's game in football. You're getting tackled. In paintball, everyone's getting shot. And I'm training 12, 13, 14-year-old kids that are crying when I train them. And one of the big things that I go to teach them is that you are the wall of what you think and what you feel to what the world knows you as. Everything that you think, everything that you feel is not part of this world. It's only a part of you. It only relies inside you yourself. You are the wall that defines how the world recognizes you when you put that out into the world, right? Every time you say something, you move your hands, you make a gesture, that's what you're going to be defined as in this world. So make sure that you understand nobody else in existence controls how you are defined besides you. You are the one that are going to take the emotions and the thought process and define what that really looks like as a representation of yourself. So, as you were saying, like that left and right brain ideology and the structure of how to see things, it is completely controlled by you. It is the hardest thing in the world to do, to find out how to control yourself and your own emotions past what you naturally feel. But once you get full control over that, you have the option to be happy every day. You have the option to be motivated every day. You have the option to be sad or to be excited, but it's not something, I don't believe that the world happens to you. I believe that you happen to the world. Everything that happens, like you said, if it's a good or bad scenario, you define if it's good or bad, right? The good or bad, hard to say, the storyline behind that, if you guys haven't heard that, one of my favorites. But that's one of the basic structures of what I look at every day, right? Have you heard that story?
No, and I might actually save that for our other podcast, because there's no question you're the perfect guest for our other podcast. Well, remind me, actually say the story one more time, then I'm gonna bring it up next time.
It's a Chinese farmer proverb. So it's a Chinese proverb. Basically, a Chinese man finds a horse, brings the horse home, and a neighbor comes over and goes, "Oh, you got a free horse. It's amazing." And he looks at him and goes, "Good or bad, hard to say." The next day, the horse leaves. Good or bad, hard to say. Next day, the horse leaves. He runs away. The neighbor goes, "Oh, damn, there goes the horse." And the owner goes, "Good or bad, hard to say." Next day, the horse comes back with 7 horses. Now we have 8 horses. The neighbor's like, "Oh, amazing, you have 8 horses." Good or bad, hard to say. The next day, the kid's training a horse. Kid falls off the horse, breaks his leg.
Right. That's
right. So yeah, it is 100% determined by you, right? The world as you see it, and the world as the world sees you is determined by you.
Yeah, and one of the most controversial phrases or sayings is happiness is a choice, and you'll run into the people that don't believe that, and they're usually always the ones that are unhappy. So
Exactly.
I've heard people on podcasts like not say that, like they were like, "Oh, I never said that for the first 100 episodes because I knew people would like it would be polarizing," which is the craziness. You're also like a walking video short. You're just like
just spewing them out.
Sweet.
a lot of a lot of what you're saying, and I don't know if I have like any books close enough, but everything that you're saying is stoicism. It's impact the things you can impact and don't worry about the rest. And I think whether that's from sometimes parts are from Buddhism, sometimes parts are from Chinese proverbs, whatever it is, the core of it I think has always been stoicism. And it's again, impact the things you can, don't worry about the rest. The last thing before the business thing, I know we're kind of running short on time. I've always thought the best way to teach someone how to ski is just push them on the ground and realize that falling like doesn't hurt that bad. Because I think the you said the wall and everything, I couldn't agree more that the thing that stops people from just moving from a beginner to intermediate is this like they're scared to fall and they think it's going to hurt. Just push the person down, see that doesn't hurt, and then that like unlocks that in their brain. So I couldn't agree more with that. So now I'd like to learn a little bit more about the marketing firm, Kaizen Marketing Agency, because again, part of our goal with the podcast is to build this community among our guests that promotes referrals and support. So the last time we spoke, you mentioned that you do something pretty different from other agencies because you were kind of like tired of agencies not giving their clients ownership of their work. So can you explain how you work with clients that's a little bit different?
Yeah. So when we built Kaizen Marketing Agency, I was actually working. I first called it KB Social Media and Online Advertising, but I had to take my name off of it for a little bit. But I was working for a direct mail company selling direct mail, and I realized through that and working with some other agencies that there was a position by marketing agencies that I didn't quite understand. That they were a business designed to help grow the company, but didn't want to talk about revenue, didn't want to talk about profit, didn't want to talk about true growth of the business. If they ran Facebook and Instagram ads, they would talk about impressions and likes and comments and things of that nature. They ran Google ads, they would talk about clicks over to the site. But the fact that the system itself wasn't designed to grow the business, it was designed to sell the service of the platform, I did not like. Then I started looking deeper into how these businesses actually worked with companies, and to see a 12-month or a 6-month contract with an agency is tough. It's very difficult to look at as a business owner, because remember, I was looking at this at first from a restaurant owner's eyes, right? I was a restaurant owner. I wanted to see how it felt as a restaurant owner. And it was like, hey, I don't even have 12 consistent months of business. I have seasons, I have this, I have that. And there's no way a single agency, unless you have consistent brainchild meetings every single month, is going to give me enough angles and ideologies to be locked in for 12 months. And if that's the case, and if I am locked in for 12 months, I should see a 12-month forecast and an overview of how it looks like in that time. And I didn't see that very often with agencies. And then the last one, which in today's day and age is just so crazy to still see, is the lack of ownership by the business owner, right? So in today's advertising, not even just paid advertising, but organic and everything that you do, data is the most useful asset that you have. If you are paying for a lead generator, or if you are using an agency that develops their own landing page and has their own ad account, sets up their own tracking, and they don't give it to you, they might be at a lower cost to work at that company, but that's because they're taking your data and owning the data and leveraging it across everything else that they do. Where you as a business owner, your success is not compoundable and scalable unless you're leaning into the data. So with that being said, the 3 first core values that we put into the agency was 100% ownership of the accounts by the business owner. So from the ad accounts to the tracking to all the creatives and the graphics that we develop, everything that we do, even the Google Drive that we set up to them for sharing assets back and forth, they own it 100%. If they part with us at any time, they're going to be able to make sure they're going to take a step forward when they bring in the next agency. Or if they do it themselves, they don't have to take 5 steps back and then a step forward. They are always going to be able to compound the success that they have with our company. Second, no long-term contracts. So it makes it hard for an agency owner, right? Because sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to find real success with paid ads, right? They don't know their messaging, they don't know their angle, they don't know customer avatar, whatever it might be. But I believe that if we couldn't represent value within the first 30 days in paid ads, then there was no reason for us to work together. And at the end of the day, I just don't want to see business owners fail. Like after coming from a failing business, first and foremost, I don't want to see a company have to go through what my family and I had to do, right? So I now have a 60-day, which is cancelable with a 5-day notice, heads up. So 60 days you stay on and sets up the tracking and sets up the advertising, builds out all the count, and then it's month to month after that. Don't lock anybody into long term simply because I want to make sure that even if I'm working with a client, I take every phone call, right? We have 70 plus clients and growing consistently. And if you are one of my clients, you have my phone number. So I don't want to be called with pissed off business owners all the time. I'd rather everyone be happy with the service that we're giving. And if they're not happy, they're not locked into a contract. No big deal. And then the third guarantee is that we only talk about profit. We talk about revenue, we talk about profit. Likes, comments, and shares are cool, but even when we send reports, I just got off a meeting right before this call where, we start off the call with, hey, you spent $2,000 on your meta advertising, we generated $8,000 in total revenue. Then here's the consumer avatars, here's the creative that's working, here's the message test that we put out there, here's the results of the success that we're having. But it always starts, and we're forefront with, you gave me X and I delivered Y in revenue, which I believe is the core value for any agency out there. That's our job at the end of the day.
No, that was great. And I guess in like a succinct way, so then the next 3 questions are really how, we're getting this community and referral networks going. So in a succinct way, like, can you answer, what services do you guys currently provide?
So we're looked at as customer acquisition and business growth partners, right? So it's really paid advertising. We don't handle organic social. We don't really do. We have some SEO programs, but they're made for a very fast and aggressive SEO. But everything that we do is for customer acquisition. So our main flagship product right now is Meta ads and Google ads, right? Meta advertising is Facebook and Instagram ads. Google ads also include YouTube and YouTube Short ads. But we are full stack media buyers. So me personally, I'm one of those CEOs that didn't come in as like, I'm really good at sales. I'm one of those CEOs that came in as the nerd that could do the service, right? So even myself and all my media buyers are registered full stack media buyers. So that means we're registered to run ads on Meta, Google, Hulu. We just got registered with Disney Plus, which is awesome. Snapchat, X, TikTok, all the platforms across the board that allows us to do trackable advertising. We are excited to do that. And to follow up with that, email marketing. So my CEO, my COO, Santi, who's my right-hand man, is a Klaviyo partner and a Klaviyo expert. We use Klaviyo to combine that customer outreach combined with the communication system so that we are making a true customer acquisition portal for the business.
Perfect. And then similar, especially talking about services, how can you work with other marketing agencies, or what services can you partner with other agencies? So in other words, what do agencies tend to reach out to you for?
So they reach out to us for really the paid ad service. So usually our best referral partners that we get are content creators, video creators. If you're doing any type of graphic design, basically if you're making the assets that make the business look great and then the business is not doing anything with them, we take those assets and make them revenue generating assets. Also, if there is any CRO companies, so conversion rate optimization businesses, which conversion rate optimization are brand-based companies where they're adjusting their branding and optimizing the branding and the positioning of the business. Those are perfect for us because they get to sit down and really structure what their messaging is, what their creative is. And we've partnered with a lot of these agencies to be able to run clear A/B tests to get you real answers, right? We all have this assumption of what works and what doesn't work, but one of my favorite quotes is an assumption makes an ass out of you and me, right? So instead of having assumptions, I think Gary Vee had one of these in his latest podcast when he talks about like it's an age of testing. We have the opportunity now where I can run a clean A/B test hitting different consumer profiles spending the same exact amount of money on the same exact asset and let you know what is going to resonate the most. We have a 4-stage testing system that we do in our media buying where we're testing messaging, testing creative, testing audience profiles, and then scalability opportunities, right? So any agency that has a focus on developing creative assets, video assets, developing an optimization of their brand imagery, the brand look, or are in the position where they're trying to optimize the overall business to the highest potential conversion rate, our ideal positioning is to be with them because we're going to drive the traffic and develop a system that will give them clear answers while bringing in the revenue.
And then to switch that question around, what services do you tend to partner with the best? So, what services are closely aligned to yours that you might not have internal staff for and might need help with?
So right now we have referral partners that we work with. We're white labeled by a lot of different agencies. One is an SEO company. One is an affiliate marketing company. Those guys are awesome. And a really good affiliate partner. Some website development companies, app development, and then any type of creative. So our team, we have graphic designers and video editors in-house, but we don't make raw creative. So anybody that's making raw creative in-house for the client, we can come in and then make sure that gets promoted the right way.
And then last question, just any books, podcasts, or newsletter recommendations?
Oh, I have too many. Too many.
Go whatever you want.
If let's go from beginner to expert, right? So if you're just starting, I definitely recommend .com Secrets, especially in the marketing field. .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. It's just a really clean Bible of an understanding consumer avatar, lifetime value, value ladder, all of that. And then to upgrade that, Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Subi is basically just an upgrade from .com Secrets. Also on the business side, Work Clean is a really, really strong book, especially for men that need help with their organization and that kind of structure of how to put in place their mindset and how they allocate their time to find success. It's a book that helped me a lot. There's Ready, Fire, Aim, which is one that I'm rereading right now. Really good one. Malcolm Gladwell's books, like The Tipping Point, I was bringing this up earlier and when we first started talking, is a really strong book for an understanding of how to find the right product and how to represent your business correctly if you're just entering into a market. Then when you're going to get more into the advanced side, that one's when I really start recommending YouTube and podcasts. So Common Thread Collective, if you're a media buyer, e-commerce business, or in the paid advertising vertical whatsoever, Common Thread Collective's YouTube page is an incredible source. Maxwell Finn, who's one of the best TikTok advertisers right now, he's got a course that's very, very powerful on TikTok ads and that structure. I'd recommend that. If you're a media buyer that wants really, really good system, a scientific testing system, and you want to learn how to scientifically test through media buying, Will Perry's Creative Testing Mastery, great course. And then podcasts, I'm listening to Russell Brunson. I'm listening to, I can't drop Alex Hormozi. I mean, Alex Hormozi stuff, $100 million leads, $100 million offers, $100 million leads. If you're a business owner and you haven't read $100 million leads and $100 million offers, and you have any confusion of how to run your business, buy those two books. I mean, that combined with the acquisition.com free training modulars, I mean, just a plethora of knowledge. And he's only trying to work with businesses that are 10 million plus. So if you're not there, he's got enough free content to get you there. So,
dude, you're a beast.
Yeah, Brian.
You're a fucking animal, man.
The biggest thing, the one thing that I realized is that there's not, at our fingertips, we don't have all the people that we need to be successful. Like, it's great that we got to connect and I'm able to sit down with you two and we're able to share this information. But there's so many people that want to be successful and there is so little real knowledge out there. There is millions of courses being sold that are worth nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can find the content on YouTube. The real thing that I think I have found my success in is I believe in common denominators. I believe that the only way to find truth is to source out as many potential sources as possible, weed out their personal relations, weed out their personal emotions behind X, Y, and Z, and find out how Malcolm Gladwell and Alex Hormozi talk about business and find the common denominators there. Because as you start looking through enough information, you'll find that all these things are very consistent across the board. It's why Kaizen has done so well for small to medium-sized businesses, because in today's world, everyone cares about the big fish. Everyone cares about the e-commerce business that's going to be able to scale to $100,000 a month. And they put every bell and whistle on that e-commerce client, and they do a tenth of that for the local restaurant, when in actuality, they're the same structure. You need the same outreach, email programs, CRM support, communication tactics in an e-commerce business as you do in a restaurant. It's just restaurants have this easier time of finding success because they've been around for hundreds of years, right? Where e-commerce is a little bit different. So yeah, just finding that common denominator, man. That's been my goal for a long time, and I'm still missing a lot of them.
And maybe this is actually a common numerator, but I think just to extend what you just said, a lot of times the best strategies in an industry came from another industry. I guess would that be denominator or numerator? Whatever. Where you're taking something from e-commerce and you're applying it to, I don't know, anything, sports, and it's like, wow, that works so well, but no one even thought about bringing like that simple thing over to sports, and look at it, it worked. No one thought about it. So
I also do this a lot with one of my mentors, a couple of my mentors. A lot of them do things that are common sense to them that are not common sense to others. And I think maybe for like some of the books that you mentioned, the things that they're mentioning, it's common sense to them. They're trying to explain it in a way that others can understand, and the result of what's coming out is different. So as you're reading different things, like for them, they all reach their success by certain principles that are common sense. They probably can't really explain. So by you absorbing it, or they're explaining it in a way that may resonate with one person, not with another. So I think that's what I found so far, is in terms of those common denominators, it really boils down to common sense for certain people, that it was the reason behind their success that they can't really explain in a way that others will all absorb the same way.
Yeah, Outliers, right? The book, The Outliers, is a great example of that, right? So if you guys haven't read that book, it's a book based around comparing Henry Ford to Oprah Winfrey and Elon Musk. Basically, they show all of these common denominators that happen with all the successful people in the world, and you find that common sense is not very common anymore, right? So it's definitely very different across the board of what common sense is. But at the end of the day, there's a reason that there is a 1%. There was a study by, I believe it was Stanford or Harvard, where they took a single town where there was immensely wealthy individuals, I think 10 or 12, and then separated that wealth across the entire town. And it took 90 days for those wealthy people to accumulate the wealth again. Right? It is not how you grew up. It is not your parents. It is not the position that you are in. It is your understanding and your willingness to go out there and find what is true and enact on those things. So 100%. And then Josh, you just brought something up that I wanted to hit on, but I lost it.
I'm gonna say we'll hold it for the next one just because we have 3 minutes. But if it pops up, definitely let's talk about it at some point. And yeah, on that note, as we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
So I remembered it. Can I jump into it real quick?
Please.
Okay, sweet. So Josh was talking about how you can take ideologies from different categories of business and bring it in. So it was like an e-commerce ideology brought into sports, and it has been successful. Russell Brunson's latest book, Linchpin, right, talks about a continuation program. So this is like a monthly subscription program, right, where only e-commerce and video streaming websites have actually bought this in. But think about the concept for a fencing company. I brought this up to one of my fencing clients. You can take that same subscription ideology, and now when you go to sell your fence, you sell your normal fence, but when you go at the end to upsell, you upsell them on a monthly subscription of pressure washing and cleaning, where they're paying $39.95, and every 60 days you have someone come out and make sure the screws are tight and you clean off the fence a little bit, right? So there's all these different concepts that even when I bring them up to business owners and I know they'll be successful, they're resistant because of what they believe is right. Don't be afraid to break the mold. Don't be afraid to break the mold. And then where can people find me? So if you want to check out all the paintball stuff I'm into, combined with the marketing and kind of an overview of my life, you can check out my Instagram. It's Kyle Berry _PB. That's got all the crazy paintball stuff, all my travel, my little 8-month-old baby, as well as some of the marketing. Kaizen Marketing Agency on Instagram has a lot of our recent content, but you can also find me on LinkedIn as Kyle Berry. And then kaizenmarketing.agency is our website. If you guys need any information or have any requests, the biggest thing for me is that I want to be recognized as one of the best marketers in the world. That I don't care how much wealth comes on the back end of that. I just want to help as many people as possible. So if you have a business and you're starting off and you don't know where to go, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I would love to have a one-on-one and just give you a game plan and some prudence of the last 10 years of me being burnt by this business so that you don't have to go through the fires to find your own success.
We call that dumb tax, which is great. I also want to apologize to anyone that listened to this on 1.2 because Kyle and I both talk pretty fast. But thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you who've learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality of guests. And as always, thank you for listening. Kyle, dude, what thank you, man. What an episode.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.